we'll get back to the beginning, the origins. I was asked to teach the film classes, which was 16:1 and 16:2. And so I started that with the 16:1 class, and that's the basics, how to run a Bolex. But I just was feeling a lot of energy for this opportunity for me to talk to young people, to teach them about filmmaking. And they got this sense of momentum. So the same students would end up taking 16:2. So we already felt like a community, a tribe. And one of the students, I think it might have been a student named Bill Gerhardt, who's now very successful as a director in Los Angeles. He works a lot on AMC series, but he had a script called Seizure, and it was an interesting story. And so we combined this, our resources as a class, and spent the semester, which is about 14 weeks, making this film in 16 millimeter. And then we actually had a premiere event at Studio 28. And so all very successful, huge turnout. Just the energy was fantastic. The second year kind of followed the same thing, but this time we had a student, Julian Boyance, who had a script called To Overlook Beauty, which was a narrative fiction, but it was about teenage suicide. We did that then as 16:2, premiered it for 2 nights at, I think, once in Studio 28 and once in Muskegon. And then the third year, what we did to create it, to up the ante, so to speak, was we shot in Super 16. And Super 16 is a format that came around to kind of, it's the same aspect ratio as HD TV, and it lends itself well to blowing up your final product to 35 millimeter film, which at that time, 35 millimeter film was the standard projection format. Our previous 2 years, we would bring in a 16 millimeter projector into this movie theater and project, our 16 millimeter film. Of course, it didn't match what patrons would usually see at the theater. So this idea was, now let's bring a 35 millimeter print. So this was all about a comedy called Life Yucks, and the students each got to do a little comedy segment, and we ended up with a 35 millimeter print. I think we might have even had 4 nights of screening. And so that just every year we seemed to do something a little bit more. And then I think it was, I have to mention this incredible support from the School of Communications faculty, and one person in particular, uh, Alex Nestorenko. He was the director of the School of Com, and he really supported what we were doing, and continued it. So then that conversation says, what could we do beyond that? And that was the how the summer film program got to. So instead of one semester, why not the whole summer? And so that's how we developed it. And the other part that really put a lot of energy into it was this idea of bringing in guests, either film people, lectures. But we contacted, I saw an ad in the American Cinematographer for this Fuji film, and it was this woman, Irish, 5'2", red-haired woman, and her name was Brianne Murphy, and she was the first woman to ever become a member of the American Society of Cinematographers. And this is a huge deal. The American Society of Cinematographers is the most prestigious organization that you can become a member of. As 100 members, you can only opens up if somebody dies. It takes 2 other members to nominate you. Brianne had been the DP on all of the Little House on the Prairie TV series with Michael Landon was the director of that, who was, anyway, there's a lot of history. So Brianne agreed to become sort of a mentor to the summer film program. With her connections in Hollywood, she also asked if she could bring her sister, who was a script supervisor for 30 years. Her name is Jillian Murphy. And that Hollywood connection made a lot of things happen, which also then connected us to Panavision, who had a new program called the New Filmmaker Program. And it was the second year. The first year they had given a Panavision package to U of M. They require the camera package is free, but you have to insure the camera package, which is about 10 cases of equipment. And they had to be insured for $1 million. The first year that U of M had it, they said it has to stay in this room. And so but but Grand Valley put up with the money. They put up the insurance, and so we had this 10 cases of Panavision equipment, and we had a great time making this film. And so then the program was so successful that Grand Valley said we need a full-time tenured faculty person to run this program, and I didn't qualify because of a lack of advanced degrees. So I had to sort of step out of the way, and that's how eventually John came to be in charge of that program, and I think he's done a fantastic job right from the beginning. I remember going to the premiere of what was it called? The Go Piece. Yes, very good film. So anyway, that's in short how this all got into the summer film program.
I guess I would just go back and say you can't tell the story of Grand Valley without talking about the growth. I mean, when I started, there was maybe 12,000 total students, and when I left, there was close to 30,000. Every fall, I would drive into the campus, and there'd be a new building, and I would be like, "What is that? Where did that come from?" And I remember when I came, as Tony said, I came to Grand Valley, and I actually pitched the idea of a summer film project in Southern Illinois. And they were like, "Well, it's a cool idea, but we can't afford to do that." And then I came up and they said, "Hey, we have a thing called the Summer Film Project here." And I was like, "That's a great idea," which I think Gerb was the guy who launched the first one. Year after year, it just got bigger. It's this intensive program where it's like boot camp. I mean, you're on set for, sometimes 5 days, sometimes, 12 days, 10, 12 hours a day. And you're really, learning as close as you can get to what it's going to be like in film production if you get a career in that. And we started to bring in, as it grew, we started to bring in a Hollywood DP, Jack Anderson, and he brought the Panaflex Super 16 along. We started to bring in Hollywood actors, James Karen, Paulie Perrette from NCIS and so on. The screenwriting got better, the actors got better, the crews got bigger, and the other thing about 20 years at Grand Valley is the technology keeps changing. I started, we shot not at the summer film, but we shot in media production classes on VHS and then SVHS and then mini DV and the Betacam, and now it's all tapeless. And the summer film kind of finally a few years ago switched from film to the red camera and Arri, Alexa, and so on and so on. So we've followed along, with the digital revolution as in terms of the production aspects of it. But yeah, I've heard so much from part of the thing that kept me doing it, and I think I directed 12 of the 25 summer films, was because students you'd watch them just change over the course of the production into becoming professionals. And many of them told me, I learned so much. That kind of feedback just makes you want to keep doing it. And it's always different one summer to the next, because a comedy is different than a drama, different than a family movie. They're all different stories, so they have different elements, different locations, different characters. So it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of work, a lot of long days, but I enjoyed it.
One of the things that I really treasure in my memories of going to Grand Valley was my work on the several summer film projects that we worked on. It was always a very intense, very frenetic thing to do. We were all taking our summers and just doing this project. And the first one I worked on was an anthology film where we all wrote scripts and we all did different jobs in each of these scripts. And then at the end, we had like an assemblage film. And that was really great. And then the next one we did was we had a partnership with Panavision, and they brought in a big 35 millimeter camera, and a lady named Kelly Simpson came in and shepherded us through that, and that was an amazing experience. That's where I learned to be a camera assistant, and I learned to be a camera assistant because coming into the program midstream as I did, I knew I wasn't going to be a DP or a director. So Gerb gave me a copy of the camera operator's manual, and I went home and I read it and got through it. And I was like, oh, camera assistant, they get to play with all the toys. I'll do that. And so I had Kelly Simpson from Panavision, who had been a camera assistant on the X-Files and the Commish and all these other shows that were in Vancouver. And she taught me to be a camera assistant, which I started to do professionally after I left Grand Valley. But then the first summer film project, the next year, we shot that on the 16 millimeter Panavision thing, and I DP'd that. And one of the things we did, we had a partnership with Columbia in LA, and Brianne Murphy came over and helped us with that. And she tutored me personally and took me back to LA with her. And that was an amazing experience. And it's a brilliant program. And it's one of the foundations of what really helped me to understand exactly what it takes to make a film. And it's one of my favorite things I've ever done.